Hello, I'm attorney Lewis Haskell, and I have recently done a series of videos about how small businesses can survive the current COVID-19 pandemic and how to handle things like debt, payroll, landlords, these sorts of issues when the revenue has stopped or slowed considerably. One of the issues I did not discuss, other than I think to mention parenthetically, is the Payroll Protection Program, or PPP. And the reason that I left it out was because I expected that by now the PPP money would be long gone. It's a great program. Everyone should take advantage of it. And, well, not everyone, but everyone with employees, and a lot of people who don't have employees should avail themselves of it. And a lot of people aren't. There are a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstandings, and as a result, people are actually getting the loans and giving the money back, which is remarkable. But and a lot of people are just simply not applying for them. There's a lot of complaints that there are too many strings attached and they're too onerous and yada yada. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, although I will acknowledge that the SBA needs to get on its horse and give us a lot more guidance on some of these forgiveness terms. One of the questions I'd like to have answered is, is 8 weeks of payroll based on payments that are made during the 8 weeks or payroll that accrues during the 8 weeks? Because those can be very different numbers, especially if someone is using the PPP loan to do what it's designed to do, which is to encourage people to recall the people that they have furloughed, so that the first pay period of the PPP period will be very low because folks are on furlough, but those people will be working during the PPP period, and their last paycheck will come after the PPP period. So it'd be nice to hear what the SBA has to say about that, because the way the rules are written, it's just horrible. So I get that, but understand what this is. First of all, it's a loan. Okay, it's a loan that has forgiveness provisions, but it begins as a loan, and a very good loan. It's a 1% loan, 1% for 2 years, and you can pay it back whenever you like. So if you borrow too much and you only get a partial forgiveness, you can just turn around and get back the rest, and no harm, no foul. So right off the bat, I don't understand what people are so afraid of. There was this horrible article that CBS posted where somebody got their loan in April, and it was a business that doesn't open until June or July, and it's like, oh, how horrible, we're being saddled with all this debt that we don't need, and we have no need for workers now. And it's like, look, give the money back. You're not hurt by this. And and they can probably apply now and get the loan in late May and bring their workers in, and they could use it for some other things. But in any event, the PPP formula is 8 weeks of payroll cost, and it's an expansive definition of payroll because it includes not only wages and salaries, but health care, 401k matches, even state unemployment tax. And in a sole proprietorship, the proprietor, the owner, actually counts as income. And so the loan will be 2.5 months of payroll. Usually people use 2019 as the base for that, although it is possible to use the beginning of the year if you just opened, and there's some provisions for seasonal businesses. But they give you 2.5 months of payroll, and then they give you 8 weeks to spend it. Any of these payroll items that were there in the first place, that you then spend it on during the 8-week period, is all forgiven. So if your payroll is during the PPP period, the 8-week period is exactly what it was, then that 8 weeks of payroll will all be forgiven. Now, they gave you 2.5 months. Part of the thinking there is that they are hoping that you will expand your payroll. Because again, this is part of the stimulus bill, part of the CARES Act, and it's not only there to preserve jobs but to create them. So that is something that you can do with that other, really it's 2.5 weeks of payroll money, 2 2/3 weeks of payroll money, because there's 4.3 weeks in a month, and it all gets weird. But you can also use it for some other things. You can use it for rent, for utilities, for interest. Actually, that's about it. And and so part of thinking there, of course, is that they want this kind of a form of trickle up economics. Keep your landlord collecting rent so that your landlord keeps paying the mortgage, so that the banks don't collapse like they did the last time. And so that's all good. And by the way, that 75% rule that has people all upset, you must at least 75% of your forgiveness must have been payroll. It's simply a matter of, if you keep your payroll as it was, well, that's basically 75% of what they gave you, and then you can use the other 25% on other stuff. Now, if you're in a business like mine, which is almost all payroll, in other words, my payroll probably accounts for 2/3 of my overhead, rent, utilities, and even the stuff I'm not allowed to, would not be allowed to count, doesn't come anywhere close to 25%. So you have too much money. So if you don't expand payroll, you give it back. What's the big deal? That's the big deal. But in any event, I understand why there's confusion. I understand why there's confusion over the certification, and that is something where a lot of people probably do need help, although the SBA has put out a new safe harbor for people borrowing less than $2 million, which is the vast majority of the loans. But remember, that certification is based on uncertainty arising out of COVID-19. And I think that most businesses can honestly say that their future is uncertain right now. Certainly if you make hand sanitizer or masks, that would not be a good certification. But for most of us, we live in uncharted territory right now. We live in troubled times. We have no idea what the future is going to be. We don't know when the governor's lockdown order is ever really going to come to an end. This idea of we have a phased-in plan to reopen in phases, which will be handled in a phased period, in an open and phased way. Until then, we're closed. Really doesn't give us much guidance. I don't even know who's going to be able to open May 18. And I watched the governor's speech. Haven't the slightest idea. I'm not sure if the governor knows, but that's neither here nor there. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave. We don't know what's going to happen after we reopen. So to say that our futures are uncertain is something most people can honestly say. And so, while I understand that there's a lot of confusion surrounding the PPP program, I would also say that this is a good way for small businesses to stay open, to keep their people working, to keep the doors open and the lights on at a time when revenue might be zero and is certainly a lot less than anticipated. For anybody who needs assistance with this, I really haven't been reaching out to folks for PPP. I've mostly been just helping people who are already my clients, who I'm already counseling, but I am getting a lot of phone calls on it. So at this point, I will say that I'm here to help. You can give me a call at 978-459-8359. My office is at 16 Pine Street in Lowell. Until we're able to speak, or until this pandemic passes and we see each other again, please stay safe and stay strong. Thank you.